The starship Elysium drifted silently through the void, its hull glinting faintly in the light of a distant sun. On board, Commander Kale Arvidsson stood at the observation deck, his sharp blue eyes scanning the endless expanse of space. The Elysium was humanity's pride, a vessel designed for first-contact missions, equipped with the latest technology and staffed by the best minds Earth had to offer. Yet, despite its grandeur, the ship felt small against the infinite darkness. Kale was a seasoned explorer, a man who had dedicated his life to the stars. His crew respected him, not just for his expertise but for his unwavering sense of justice. He believed in the potential of humanity, in their ability to rise above their flaws and become something greater. But he also knew the universe was vast and unforgiving, and not all who dwelled within it would welcome humanity with open arms. "Commander," a voice broke through his thoughts. It was Lieutenant Mira Talon, the ship's chief communications officer. Her dark hair was tied back in a tight bun, and her sharp features were illuminated by the soft glow of her data pad. "We're picking up an anomalous signal from the Zeta-9 system. It's unlike anything we've encountered before." Kale turned, his interest piqued. "Define anomalous, Lieutenant." Mira hesitated, her brow furrowing. "It's not a natural phenomenon. The signal is structured, deliberate. But it's not in any known language or code. It's almost alive." Kale's pulse quickened. This was it, the moment they had been preparing for. "Set a course for Zeta-9. Let's see what's out there." The Zeta-9 system was a desolate place, its planets barren and lifeless. But as the Elysium approached the source of the signal, they found something that defied explanation. Floating in the void was a massive structure, its surface shimmering with an iridescent glow. It was neither a ship nor a station, but something entirely alien, its geometry shifting and flowing as though it were alive. "What the hell is that?" muttered Ensign Yarrick Voss, the ship's pilot. His hands tightened on the controls as he brought the Elysium to a halt. Kale studied the structure, his mind racing. "It's a construct of some kind. But who built it? And why?" Myra's voice was tense. "The signal is coming from inside. It's calling to us." Kale made a decision. "Prepare a shuttle. I'm going in." The crew protested, but Kale was resolute. This was why he was here, why he had left Earth behind. To seek out the unknown, to find answers to questions humanity hadn't even thought to ask. The shuttle approached the structure cautiously, its sensors scanning for any signs of danger. But there was nothing, no weapons, no defenses, just an eerie silence. As they drew closer, the structure seemed to react, its surface rippling like water. A portal opened, revealing a dark passage leading into the heart of the construct. Kale stepped out of the shuttle, his suit's lights cutting through the darkness. The air was thick with an almost electric energy, and he could feel the weight of the unknown pressing down on him. He moved forward, his team following close behind. The interior of the structure was unlike anything they had ever seen. The walls pulsed with a faint light, and the air was filled with a low, resonant hum. It felt alive, as though the structure itself was aware of their presence. As they ventured deeper, they came across a chamber bathed in a soft, golden light. At its center was a pedestal, and on it rested a single object, a crystalline orb, its surface etched with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change as they watched. Kale reached out, his gloved hand hovering over the orb. This is the source of the signal." Before he could touch it, the orb flared to life, and a voice echoed through the chamber. It was not a voice in the traditional sense, but a presence, a consciousness that spoke directly to their minds. "You have come far, children of Earth. But are you worthy?" Kale froze, his heart pounding. "Who are you?" The voice did not answer directly. Instead, the chamber filled with images, visions of humanity's past, their triumphs and failures, their wars and their art. It was a tapestry of their existence, laid bare before them. You are a species of contradictions, capable of great beauty and great destruction. But the universe demands more. It demands balance. Kale's mind raced. What do you want from us? The voice grew softer, almost sorrowful. To test you. To see if you are ready to join the greater whole. But be warned, the path ahead is fraught with peril. Not all who seek the truth are prepared to face it. The images faded, and the chamber fell silent. The orb dimmed, its light fading to a faint glow. Kale turned to his team, his expression grim. We need to take this back to the Elysium. Whatever this is, it's bigger than us. As they made their way back to the shuttle, Kale couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The structure seemed to pulse with a quiet intensity, as though it were alive and aware of their every move. When they finally returned to the Elysium, the crew was waiting anxiously. Kale held up the orb, its light casting strange shadows on the walls. "We've found something," he said, his voice steady. "Something that could change everything." But as he spoke, he couldn't help but wonder, had they found a gift or a curse? The orb was placed in the Elysium's research lab, where Dr. Ilara Voss, the ship's chief scientist, began to study it. Ilara was Jarek's older sister, a brilliant mind with a passion for unraveling the mysteries of the universe. Her auburn hair was streaked with silver, and her green eyes sparkled with curiosity as she examined the orb. "It's unlike anything I've ever seen," she murmured, her fingers hovering over the crystalline surface. "The patterns, they're not random. They're a language, a code." Kale watched from the doorway, his arms crossed. "Can you decipher it?" Ilara shook her head. "Not yet. But I'll keep trying. This could be the key to understanding the structure, maybe even the beings who created it." As the days passed, the orb began to affect the crew in strange ways. Some reported vivid dreams, while others claimed to hear whispers in their minds. The ship's AI, a sophisticated program named Aegis, began to exhibit unusual behavior, its responses becoming more human. "It's as if the orb is influencing us," Mira said one evening, her voice tinged with unease. "Like it's trying to communicate." Kale nodded, his expression troubled. "We need to be careful. We don't know what we're dealing with." But caution was easier said than done. The orb's pull was irresistible, its light drawing them in like moths to a flame. Even Kale found himself drawn to it, his thoughts consumed by the mysteries it held. One night, as the ship drifted through the void, the orb suddenly flared to life. The crew gathered in the lab, their faces illuminated by its golden glow. "The time has come," the voice echoed in their minds. "The test begins." Before anyone could react, the ship was engulfed in a blinding light. When it faded, they found themselves in a place that defied comprehension, a vast, shimmering expanse that seemed to stretch on forever. The Elysium was gone, replaced by an endless sea of stars. "Where are we?" Jarek whispered, his voice trembling. Kale shook his head. "I don't know. But we need to stay together." As they ventured into the strange new world, they began to encounter things. Shapes that shifted and flowed, beings of light and shadow that seemed to watch them with ancient, knowing eyes. The air was filled with a low, resonant hum, and the ground beneath their feet felt alive. "This place, it's alive," Ilara said, her voice filled with awe. "It's a living, breathing entity." Kale nodded, his hand resting on the hilt of his sidearm. "Stay close. We don't know what's out there." As they moved deeper into the expanse, they came across a massive structure, a temple of sorts, its walls covered in the same intricate patterns as the orb. At its center was a pedestal, and on it rested another orb, identical to the one they had found. "The test is simple," the voice said. "Choose wisely." Kale stepped forward, his heart pounding. "What do you mean? What are we supposed to do?" The voice did not answer. Instead, the orbs began to glow, their light merging into a single, blinding beam. The crew shielded their eyes as the light enveloped them, and when it faded, they found themselves back on the Elysium. But something was different. The ship felt alive, as though it had been imbued with a new energy. The crew looked at each other, their faces filled with confusion and fear. What just happened? Mira asked, her voice trembling. Kale shook his head. I don't know. But I think we've been changed. As the days passed, the crew began to notice subtle differences in themselves. Their senses were heightened, their minds sharper. They could feel the ship's systems as though they were an extension of their own bodies. It's like we've become connected, Elara said, her voice filled with wonder. To the ship, to each other, to the orb. Kale nodded, his expression grim. We've been given a gift. But at what cost? The answer came sooner than they expected. The Elysium was no longer alone in the void. A massive alien fleet had appeared, their ships bristling with weapons. They were unlike anything humanity had ever encountered, ancient, powerful, and utterly merciless. The crew prepared for battle, their newfound abilities giving them an edge. But as the alien fleet closed in, Kale realized the truth. This was the test. And they were about to face their greatest challenge yet. The alien fleet surrounded the Elysium, their ships forming a tight, impenetrable ring. Kale stood on the bridge, his hands clenched into fists. The crew was ready, their newfound abilities giving them a sense of confidence, but Kale knew better. This was no ordinary battle. This was a trial, a test of their worthiness. Shields at maximum, Yarrick reported, his voice steady. Weapons are online and ready. Kale nodded, his eyes fixed on the view screen. The alien ships were massive, their hulls covered in strange, organic patterns that seemed to shift and flow. They were unlike anything humanity had ever encountered, and Kale couldn't shake the feeling that they were outmatched. Open a channel, Kale ordered. Let's see if they're willing to talk. Mira worked quickly, her fingers flying over the console. Channel open, Commander. Kale took a deep breath. This is Commander Kale Arvidsson of the Starship Elysium. We mean you no harm. We seek only to understand. For a moment, there was silence. Then, a voice filled the bridge, a deep, resonant tone that seemed to vibrate through the very air. You have been tested, children of Earth. But the trial is not yet complete. Prove your worth, or be destroyed. Kale's jaw tightened. What do you want from us? The voice did not answer. Instead, the alien ships began to move, their weapons charging with a low, ominous hum. Brace for impact. Kale shouted. The first volley hit the Elysium's shields with a deafening roar, the force of the blast shaking the ship to its core. The crew held on, their enhanced senses allowing them to react faster than ever before. Return fire. Kale ordered. The Elysium's weapons came to life, their energy beams slicing through the void. The alien ships were fast, their movements almost fluid, but the crew's newfound connection to the ship gave them an edge. They could feel the enemy's movements, anticipate their attacks. But it wasn't enough. The alien fleet was relentless, their weapons tearing through the Elysium's defenses. The ship shuddered under the onslaught, its systems straining under the pressure. We can't keep this up. Yarrick shouted, his hands gripping the controls. We need to find a way out. Kale's mind raced. They couldn't win this battle through force alone. They needed to think differently, to use their newfound abilities in ways they hadn't considered. Elara, he said, turning to the scientist. The orb. Can we use it? Elara's eyes widened. I don't know. But it's our only chance. Kale nodded. Do it. Elara rushed to the lab, her hands trembling as she activated the orb. Its light filled the room, and she could feel its power coursing through her. She focused her mind, reaching out to the ship, to the crew, to the very fabric of space itself. The Elysium began to change. Its hull shimmered, its systems merging with the orb's energy. The ship became something more, a living, breathing entity that pulsed with a golden light. The alien fleet hesitated, their movements faltering. Kale seized the opportunity. Now! Hit them with everything we've got. The Elysium unleashed a torrent of energy, its beams cutting through the alien ships like a hot knife through butter. The fleet began to retreat, their ships disappearing into the void as quickly as they had appeared. The crew cheered, their voices filled with relief and triumph. But Kale knew the battle was far from over. "We've won this round," he said, his voice grim. "But the trial isn't over. We need to be ready for whatever comes next." As the Elysium drifted through the void, its crew prepared for the next challenge. They had been tested, and they had proven their worth. But the universe was vast and unforgiving, and their journey was far from over. The Elysium drifted through the void, its crew recovering from the battle. The ship's systems were damaged, but the orb's energy had stabilized them, its golden light pulsing through the hull like a heartbeat. Kale sat in his quarters, his mind racing. The trial had been brutal, but they had survived. Yet, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were being manipulated, that the orb and the alien fleet were part of a larger, more sinister plan. "Commander," Myra's voice came through the comm, "you need to see this." Kale hurried to the bridge, where the crew was gathered around the viewscreen. The orb was floating in the center of the room, its light casting strange shadows on the walls. "What's going on?" Kale asked. Ilara turned to him, her expression filled with awe. "The orb, it's showing us something." Kale stepped closer, his eyes fixed on the orb. Its surface was shifting, the patterns forming into images, visions of a distant world, a place of unimaginable beauty and power. "This is the origin," the voice echoed in their minds. "The source of all that is. You have proven your worth, but the journey is not yet complete." Kale's heart pounded. "What do you mean? What are you showing us?" The images shifted, revealing a massive structure, a gateway of sorts, its surface covered in the same intricate patterns as the orb. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, its presence both awe-inspiring and terrifying. "The final trial awaits," the voice said. "Only those who are truly worthy may pass." Kale turned to the crew, his expression grim. "We need to find this gateway. Whatever's on the other side, it's the key to everything." The crew nodded, their faces filled with determination. They had come too far to turn back now. The journey to the gateway was long and arduous. The Elysium traveled through uncharted space, its systems pushed to their limits. The crew worked tirelessly, their connection to the ship and the orb growing stronger with each passing day. As they approached the gateway, the orb began to pulse with a fierce intensity. The crew could feel its power, its presence filling the ship with a sense of anticipation. "This is it," Kale said, his voice steady. "Prepare for transit." The Elysium approached the gateway, its hull shimmering with the orb's energy. The crew held their breath as the ship passed through, the light enveloping them in a blinding flash. When the light faded, they found themselves in a place beyond comprehension, a realm of pure energy, where the laws of physics no longer applied. The crew could feel the power of the place, its energy coursing through their veins. "Welcome," the voice said. "You have reached the heart of the universe. Here, you will face the final trial." Kale stepped forward, his heart pounding. "What do we need to do?" The voice did not answer. Instead, the crew was enveloped in a series of visions of their past, their fears, their desires. They were forced to confront their deepest selves, to face the truths they had buried. For Kale, it was a vision of his childhood, of the day he had lost his family. He had buried the pain, used it to fuel his drive to explore the stars. But now, he was forced to confront it, to accept the loss and let go of the anger. For Mira, it was a vision of her insecurities, her fear of failure. She had always pushed herself to be the best, to prove her worth. But now, she was forced to accept that she was enough, just as she was. For Alara, it was a vision of her loneliness, her fear of being forgotten. She had dedicated her life to science, to uncovering the mysteries of the universe. But now, she was forced to accept that her legacy was not in her work, but in the connections she had made. One by one, the crew faced their trials, their fears and insecurities laid bare. It was a grueling process, but they emerged stronger, their bond with each other and the orb growing deeper. When the visions faded, the crew found themselves back on the Elysium, the gateway behind them. The orb's light was dim, its energy spent. "You have passed the final trial," the voice said. "You are worthy." Kale looked at the crew, his heart filled with pride. They had faced the unknown, confronted their fears, and emerged victorious. But as the Elysium began its journey back to Earth, Kale couldn't shake the feeling that their journey was far from over. The universe was vast and full of mysteries, and they had only scratched the surface. The Elysium returned to Earth as heroes, their journey celebrated by all of humanity. The orb was placed in a secure facility, its secret studied by the best minds on the planet. But Kale knew that the orb's true power lay not in its technology, but in the lessons it had taught them. The crew had been changed by their journey, their connection to the orb and each other forever altered. They had faced the unknown, confronted their fears, and emerged stronger. They had proven their worth, not just to the universe, but to themselves. Kale stood on the observation deck of the Elysium, his eyes fixed on the stars. The journey had been long and arduous, but it had been worth it. They had found answers, but more importantly, they had found themselves. "Commander," Myra's voice broke through his thoughts. "We've received a new signal. It's different." Kale turned, his interest piqued. "Different how?" Mira hesitated, her brow furrowing. "It's not like the others. It's a call for help." Kale's heart pounded. "From where?" Myra's voice was steady. "From the other side of the galaxy." Kale nodded, his expression grim. "Prepare the ship. We're not done yet." As the Elysium prepared for its next journey, Kale couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation. The universe was vast and full of mysteries, and they had only just begun to explore it. But whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. They were the Elysium, the children of Earth, and they were ready for whatever the universe had in store. The stars called to them, and they would answer.